1900 is the greatest utopia I ever created in my life as a film director. It was the longest shoot. We shot for something like 45 weeks, because being the story of these two lives in parallel, I wanted the childhood to be set in the summer. Then the young two men are going into the fall, in the autumn, which corresponds to fascism and the winter of fascism. And then there will be the springtime of the liberation from the occupation of the Nazi and the fascists in Italy. So the structure of the film was following something which is very important for the farmers, which are the seasons of the year.
I remember that when we started, we spoke about the vision, we spoke about the concept to maybe visualize a century almost in 1 year. So divided in 4 different seasons, 4 different parts. Because those can be the 4 different parts that belong to a human being. And in order to keep all this structure, Bernardo said, Vittorio, I don't want to cut the script. I hope that nobody will touch it. And somehow, I remember that we started to work without schedule. In a sense that the schedule, yes, we can tell them more or less we can do this sequence, but I want to go in order. So we started with being a child, do the summertime first.
Hey, Wendy!
Well, no doubt that the 2 different class levels between the works of the landlord dictated to us to act in different way. For example, at the beginning when we have the long table with the dinner on the peasant, we thought that we have to film at the last light of the day, because the people were so poor that they cannot waste the oil, they cannot waste the petrol. So we had the idea to film at the sunset. And I love the idea that sun start still lit up and lit everyone on the table, sitting on the table. Step by step they sing over, and the child is being called up to the table. The sun, they go down, let everybody else in the darkness, and only the child is lit on the sun. It became another symbolic way to present now the leading character, even a child, they become consciousness. There is a child without a father. That search for a father figure is one of the main Bertolucci's concept in every picture that we did. And of course, the sequence start on sunset using natural light with them, and when we are arriving on the other sequence with the dinner on the rich people, we go from outside, which is the last light of the day, in almost at dusk, and we go inside. We can see the petrol lamps, and we can see the servant bring even more petrol lamps because they can afford it. So in using only the natural light with the peasant and the mixing between natural and artificial with each people till they get totally artificial, tell also the different class. So once again, the style, the look of the picture was going alongside with the 2 of them.
Let's both of us run away.
The fact of having been a country bumpkin helped me a lot in facing the reality of farmer families, for example. My grandfather was a little landowner with a little property, and there was the landowner house and the farmer's house. I was spending more time in the farmer's house. I was completely fascinated by the farmers, and all these memories were completely nourishing the film.
Luke, I'll teach you something. I know how you do it.
In the countryside, there is towards sex a different attitude than in the cities. As children, we were seeing the animals having sex. It was something very natural and it was long before homosexual cowboys.
What are you doing? Screwing the earth.
So I always thought that Olmo and Alfredo are the two faces of the same coin, like the two faces of the moon. And I always thought that Olmo and Alfredo had a kind of love story in their adolescence. They, growing up, they follow their classes, and they are split. They're no more so close as they are as children. And I think that pornography happens when you exploit sex and erotism. Otherwise, I think you do realism. The scene I'm thinking is the scene where a girl, which later will have an epileptic crisis, is occasionally a hooker because she's poor. She is with both Bob De Niro and Gérard Depardieu, and they both go naked into her bed, and she has penises in her hands. And I was thinking, they will say again, look how I am exploiting sex or using sex to create a controversy or to create some scandal. I thought it was very innocent at the time. I thought this girl was the last link between these two boys that are probably attached to each other more than what they know.
You really know what free love is, don't you?
So I was thinking that the movie needed that kind of strength, that kind of impact. I never thought of bringing violence into the movie. I think that violence is in the kind of life in the nature, is a life where the most important things are very basic. The poverty of Italy at the beginning of the century is something which for us was almost unthinkable. And yet it was there. The class struggle.
When the springtime came back, when there was the changing completely, the swing of the period of time, and there was this renovation we were using the season symbolically, but was the renovation in the political way. So the one period of oppression was over, and there was a kind of liberation. That's the symbol of spring.
One of the last scenes is this trial that the farmers do against the landowner.
I declare the people's trial of the Padrone open.
Olmo, the farmer, the socialist, is back. And all the farmers create a circle. In the middle, there is a chair, and the landowner is sitting on the chair. I was looking at photographs of the Chinese Revolution, and in many cases I've seen landowners, Chinese landowners, being trialed, and I think that I was inspired by these photographs because very often these landowners were surrounded by a circle of peasants, and they were going with their finger accusing, and so I tried to recreate the iconography of a revolution. It could have been Russian Revolution. In that case, it was more Chinese. Anyway, Novecento was really full with this kind of inspiration.
The Padrone is alive.
So the ending was a bit foggy for me on the script. So I decided to jump from 45 till the moment when the two of them, Olmo and Alfredo, are very old, and we did this heavy makeup on them.
The last sequence when they are 80 years old is almost the kind of new rebirth to become a young again, like a child when you finish this moment of your life. The conflict between these two class, between these two characters, after the process, they know that practically everything changed, but nothing is changed.
And Alfredo finally had the courage to go under the train, but instead of being in the middle of the rail, he puts himself like ready to die, ready to commit suicide. But then there is a kind of vertigo of the time which involves old age and childhood. And the little child is no more committing suicide. I wanted to give this feeling of a time vertigo. There are actually 3 versions of the film. My original version of 5 hour, few minutes, in 2 acts. Then there is a 3 hours 15 version cut by the producer, which in fact nobody has seen, never came out, and a compromise between the two of 4 hours and few minutes, which came out in the States. That version of 4 hours I cut it because the movie wasn't coming out and I was so much in pain, and in some way I gave up my final cut and I said, okay, let's have this film coming out. But in a way it's interesting because it's the same film, but every shot is a bit shorter. But I didn't cut any sequence from the longer one. But I think that many years later, the version I prefer is the 5 hours and few minutes in 2 acts. That is the one that I really feel more pleased with. I remember very well that it was so long, the shoot, that many people working in the crew had a second wife in that place. They created new families, like, people in exile or people doing a campaign. And one day in May, on the Monday, I said, okay, guys, let's Friday, the movie will end. There was a silence all over the crew. Everybody had to think that their life was changing. And many of the crew stopped talking to me because they were offended, because the illusion was that the movie was going on forever and ever and ever and ever. When I think how long it took, I don't know how I did, but we did it. Directing a film is a very physical action. It's not very different, I think, from a sculptor who uses a hammer and Novecento. It was an extraordinary experience. As I'm saying that as a man more than as a film director.